Later on, I'm talking about the battle in North London. On one side are the parents who want to keep their schools single-sex, and the other a headmaster who wants to merge the boys with the girls, saying it will make for a more balanced education for the children. Who's right? At 11, I'm talking about IDS, and you don't want to miss that one. About the benefit sanctions and fabricated quotes. But first up, it's e-cigarettes, soon to be available on the NHS. Is this death for the tobacco industry? I want to talk about smoking. I want to raise the possibility that the death of the tobacco industry, at least in Britain, is dawning, and that it's a good thing. But let me not in any way dissemble. I have smoked for 40 years, as you can probably tell from my voice. I've never smoked cigarettes. I smoke cigars. Big ones. Big, powerful, and expensive ones, with lots and lots of nicotine in them. But I come before you today, for the first time in 40 years, as an ex-smoker. I have finally kicked smoking. And I'll tell you, I feel a whole lot better as a result. And so do those forced to live around me. Of course, it's been a gradual thing. The government's anti-smoking legislation, which I partly opposed in Parliament, arguing, for example, and I think I still would, that smokers have the right, for example, to form clubs, and that if you go into that club, you're going in because it's a smoking club. But anyway, I was swept aside in Parliament, as others like me were, in a wave of anti-smoking legislation. And it worked. You see, once, especially if you're a cigar smoker, once you can't smoke in place after place after place, and once it becomes obvious that it's utterly selfish to smoke in others, like your car, for example, the number of places and therefore the amount of time available to you to smoke shrinks and shrinks. And that's what happened to me. And then I discovered nicotine gum. Hey, I'm off the cigars, but I'm really, really on to the nicotine gum. I'm hooked on nicotine gum. But that's a whole lot safer than being hooked on cigars. I used to kid myself that because there was no tar, no chemicals in cigars, that it was, of course, a completely different order to those sucking tar, nicotine, and chemicals into themselves in the form of cigarettes. But that was fooling myself. And as my chest complaints got more regular and worse, I decided I have to stop this now. I've been doing it too long. And I have succeeded. But I've got to tell you, it's the hardest thing. It really is. Your mind keeps going back to it. You smell smoke and you immediately wish you could reach for your own cheroot. It's a very hard thing because it's an addiction. And there are lots of people, I've heard them already here this morning, who are opposing this decision by Health England to propose the prescribing of e-cigarettes, vaping, on the health service as a means of helping people to smoke. And I tell you, you're being penny wise but pound foolish. Because if vaping, e-cigarettes on the NHS can stop people smoking, we'll be quids in. Because the cost to the health service, the cost to the health of individuals, as well as the cost to the society as a whole, greatly outweighs, dwarves, in fact, any cost of e-cigarettes on prescription. So don't be just too politically correct about this. Don't say, why should we help smokers? Kick it. It's their own fault. The bell doesn't just toll for thee. The bell tolls for all people, because we all pay the price of smoking. Now, Sir Walter Raleigh, the picture is in Parliament. I used to pause before it in the gallery, the main entrance, St. Stephen's entrance to Parliament. There's Sir Walter Raleigh kissing the hand of Queen Elizabeth I, the Virgin Queen, not, as he was headed to the New World to come back with potatoes and tobacco. Of course, it would have been better, frankly, if he'd come back with neither. Then our obesity problem, as well as our smoking problem, would be much less. But as I look around me and count my compatriots, count my co-60-somethings, as I look around my cohort of friends, the numbers of them smoking is fewer and fewer. Some of them are dead, of course, as a result, no doubt, of smoking. But I do think that smoking is dying, and it's a good thing. The tobacco industry, which has sucked the blood of generations for centuries, is on its last legs. I am a convert, and I know that a convert can be annoying, so I'm expecting you to be annoyed. But whether you agree with me or not, I ask you to endorse, to support Health England's decision to prescribe vaping as one means of giving up smoking. The question is this the death of the tobacco industry? And for those of you who think this shouldn't be available on the NHS, if you're a smoker or an ex-smoker, can you tell them how hard it is to quit? Tony's on the line in Enfield. He's up first. Tony, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, George, of course the NHS, it should fund this provision for people that wanting to get off cigarette smoking, and it should be prescribed under our NHS system. That would be a civilised thing to do when people want to stop smoking. I'm like you, I smoke cigars. I go to Havana twice a year, and of course you don't inhale a cigar, and a cigar is a natural tobacco leaf. It's not got all the hundreds of chemicals like cigarettes. But I think we also should be reminded that 10% of all people that die of lung cancer are non-smokers. Is smoking good? No, it's bad for you. Of course it is. Smoking a cigar just in and out the mouth, bad for you. But at the end of the day, I think we should have a civilised socialist system in our NHS where anything preventable prevents you and I having a disease or lung, whatever, bronchitis. Why can't they support this system with these, this alternative to cigarettes? I think it's a good idea.
Now, Tony, you mentioned Havana. Fidel Castro stopped smoking cigars as early as 1978 or 79, and he once ordered me to give up smoking. And then he saw me on CNN after my celebrated appearance in front of the US Senate in the Capitol building. He saw me lighting up a Havana cigar, thus breaking two laws in the one go: the embargo on Cuban products in America and the non-smoking, no smoking rules of the Senate. And he sent me a note, which I expected to be a note of congratulations. It was, in fact, a note of condemnation that I had not given up smoking, as he had told me to many years before. Tony in Enfield, thanks for that call. We were talking about tobacco and e-cigarettes, and Amish in Queen's Park is on the line next. Go ahead, Amish.
Hi.
Hi.
George, how are you doing?
Yes, good, thanks.
Right. We've got quite a lot of different views on this. I actually I'm partner of a small electronic cigarette company called Vipersig, and we have quite a few customers who obviously love electronic cigarettes. It's difficult to say exactly what will happen when regulation and MHRA step into things, because yes, the products will be prescribed. However, what's going to happen is that the small brands which are available at the moment will be essentially sunk, because the regulation is extremely expensive to get licenses. You've got a lot of ongoing cash which is required to constantly test the products and constantly batch test. And as far as we can see, and we speak to other electronic cigarette brands, on forums, etc., the only people that are going to be left are the big tobacco guys who've brought out their own electronic cigarettes and people who've got really deep pockets. So...
Okay, I mean, it's left field, but we must think about that. I certainly don't want to make the tobacco barons even bigger from non-tobacco than they are from tobacco. That's Hamish in Queen's Park. It's a simple question. Should e-cigarettes be available on the NHS? Yes or no? Dinesh is on the line from Oxford. Go ahead.
Hi, George.
Hi.
By the way, before I start my words, I want to sort of congratulate you. I was hearing your discussion on Jeremy Corbyn over the weekend. I absolutely loved it.
Thank you.
And moving on, I am a Costa addict. I'm a massive fan of Costas, mocha lattes and mochas. Can I get them on NHS as well? Because that's a serious addiction problem, if I could put it. Because this is getting ridiculous.
No, you can't, Dinesh, because your addiction to coffee is not costing the NHS millions, hundreds of millions, in fact. Whereas people with lung disease caused through smoking is costing the rest of us a fortune.
It is, but why should I pay for addiction? What's next? What do we supply heroin? What's the replacement? There's a heroin replacement drug.
Well, we already do. We already do. We provide on the NHS methadone to get people off heroin because we calculate that it is cost effective for the society to get people off heroin, and if the cost of that is prescribing them methadone, we do.
It's a mollycoddling society. It's getting a bit out of hand. What if everyone is forced? This is exactly why NHS is risk. This would go private, and let's see how many people who would be forced to pay private insurance be allowed to prescribe. It's because no one pays for it. It's my tax money, your tax money going into supposedly helping these people out. It's frustrating because I don't have an addiction problem. I don't have a heroin problem. So should I get a subsidy? Should I get a benefit?
Well, you might not have children, but you've still got to have schools. You might not have elderly parents still alive, but you've still got to have services that look after other people's elderly parents. It's you that's being selfish, Dinesh.
It is. It's a choice. It's a social choice having kids, and it's a social choice.
But do you think then that you shouldn't pay for schools for other people's kids?
Well, it's a social thing. I will willingly contribute to schools.
Dinesh, no man is an island. Wise up. You're in Oxford, for goodness sake. Constantine is in Croydon. Let's hear from him.
Hello, George. How nice it is to speak to you after all these years of wishing I could pat you on the back and say, my man, I love what you say.
Thank you.
So often, and through all the years, everything you said about grief and God knows what else, I've been so on your side. The only time I was a little bit was when you went meow, but I'll forgive you for that because it was an entertainment programme.
Yes, go ahead.
Well, e-cigarettes. Now, I was probably the first person on e-cigarettes, bought them in 2007, and they were only available then in tobacco flavour.
Yeah.
Which was fine because I had been a smoker since a very young age, and like you, I was not really wanting to give them up, but because it was a new thing, I thought this is great, I may give them up. And till 2010, I was smoking e-cigarettes mainly, and normal cigarettes when I fancied it.
Okay.
But I didn't give up really until 2010 with the cigarettes, but then I was still vaping.
And you've been clean for 5 years of tobacco?
Right. Now, what happened was I was off the cigarettes completely for about a year or so. Something happened, and I was a bit upset. It was a bit of a tragic thing. I had an accident, and it made me sort of incapacitated. I wasn't able to do anything at all, really, for about a year. And in that time, I did start smoking back again, which was a really silly thing to do, but I did. And I've been on and off with the cigarettes. You know, there's been silly excuses for going back on cigarettes, maybe for a week or two here and there. But the electronic cigarettes are an amazing thing. And the reason that they make lovely flavours for them, apart from cigarette smoking, actually helps. Because the thing is that although they're saying that, these are making these flavours like cherry and blah, blah, blah for children to be interested in. No, that's not the case, because what happens is that, first of all, you start on the e-cigarettes with tobacco flavour, and then you think, oh, well, I'm not interested in this tobacco flavour anymore. And when you go back onto smoking again, you realise how disgusting the flavour is. And then you think, okay, I'll go for cherry or whatever, or toffee or whatever.
Well, I don't know. I must disagree with you on that point. I have misgivings about the fancy flavours, because it's a good thing that people are on e-cigarettes rather than real cigarettes. It would be a bad thing if we were enticing people into smoking e-cigarettes, because nicotine is, I can tell you, extremely addictive. On you go, Fred.
Hello, George.
Hi.
George, I'm really worried about the giving the cigarettes on the NHS for one reason. The legislation which are being proposed about the e-cigarettes, which are basically branded by the tobacco companies, is that they're disposables, they're expensive, and that they when they are brought in, the other cigarettes, the ones that, like I'm smoking at the moment, which cost me about 10 pence a day, are going to be banned. So what you're going to end up with, and I think this is deliberate, the tobacco industry will be being paid by the NHS, and they will be raking in their profits, and that's what this is all about. That's my fear.
Well, we'll have to look further into this. That would indeed be a fear worth having. Fred, thanks for that call. Ayaz is in Ilford. Go ahead, Ayaz.
How you doing, mate? You all right?
Yes, by the grace of God, I'm good, thanks.
Yeah, what it is, I'm a vapor myself. I know a lot of stuff about it. Now, I don't think it's going to affect the NHS as much. I mean, they're going to probably issue the basic of the basic e-cigs, which is going to cost about £5. Now, I think over time, when people start getting used to this instead of cigarettes, I think they're going to invest into their own mods, which you can get the bigger, worth like £100 worth, or which gives a better, like a throat hit, which a better satisfaction. So I think people will over time will start investing into their own equipment over time. So I think you can buy an e-cig cigarette for literally £5, and I'm sure that's what NHS will probably issue in the beginning. Anyway.
Okay, good to hear from you. Thanks for that. Let's go to Jamie in Hackney.
Hi, George. Good morning.
Morning to you, sir.
George, I'm a non-smoker. I've been a non-smoker my whole life. I detest cigarettes. And now I find myself, when I'm out with friends who are trying to give up smoking, that suddenly it's socially acceptable to even pick up one of their e-cigarettes, something I would never do if it was a regular cigarette, just because it's coffee-flavoured or it's chocolate-flavoured. And I just think that they should be banned full stop, because all they're doing is potentially, in my opinion, encouraging people that wouldn't smoke, like me, to actually become addicted to nicotine.
Well, I haven't seen any figures that support that, Jamie. That's a good anecdotal point that you're making. But I haven't seen any figures which suggest that actually there are significant numbers of people taking up smoking e-cigarettes. But the numbers of people who are getting off smoking tobacco cigarettes for E is well charted, and it's not the money, because as was just made there, 10 pence a day is the cost for some e-cigarettes. It's the validation by the health service that this is a legitimate way to get off the smoking habit. That's the principal point, I think.
I understand that, George, and it clearly is a numbers game, because you're shifting one problem to another. But I don't doubt for one moment that in the introduction of e-cigarettes and it becoming more socially acceptable in the same way that smoking regular cigarettes become unacceptable socially, it's creating a different problem.
Okay, we'll keep an eye on that. Let's hear, though, from someone it helped. Will in Crawley.
Hello there.
Hi.
I just called in. The point I wanted to make was the gentleman made a comment about the flavours, obviously, enticing people in, and I think that comment is completely arbitrary, because we have flavoured alcohol. Okay, so you could argue the same point. It makes absolutely no difference whether it's flavoured or not.
Well, if it entices... Look, we don't want people becoming addicted to nicotine. So public policy should be one that minimises the number of people addicted to nicotine. So the question is, will more people take up e-cigarette smoking from a non-smoking starting point if we're peddling Huggy Bear flavour?
Well, I mean, just look at history. People have been starting to smoke regardless of flavours or not. Now, would you rather, if your son, daughter was going to go out and start smoking, which kids do, okay, we're all human beings, we're all people of the world, we know that, would you rather them pick up something which has 3 ingredients or possibly 300, including toxins that were used in the Second World War? It's a no-brainer, isn't it?
I'm not arguing with you. I want everybody to stop smoking, and I'm ready to examine any possibility that helps them do that. And I know that it is a wise investment of public funds to get people off cigarettes. It simply is. Now, I wouldn't stop there. As you possibly know, I think it's crazy to have a smoking mania whilst alcohol is glamorized, whilst gambling is endlessly proselytized. These are different questions and not for today. I want to know, should e-cigarettes be available on the NHS? You tell me. Should e-cigarettes be available on the NHS? Yes or no? I'm predicting the beginning of the, albeit slow and painful death of the tobacco industry. That's what I think. Alex in Kingston may have a different view. Let's hear from him.
Oh, hi, George.
Hi.
Yeah, I mean, I've been vaping for 4.5 years now, and they are very successful. I've tried with smoking cessation before, and they simply don't work. And research suggests that they've got something like a 2% success rate compared to vaping, which, although there's no official studies being done, most people I know who have managed to actually quit on them, probably around 60% upwards.
Have you entirely quit smoking tobacco?
Completely. I've never touched a cigarette in 4.5 years. And one of the earlier comments about these sort of different flavours and everything like that, you know, you start off on the tobacco flavours, as most people do, but after a while, the taste of burnt leaf isn't particularly enticing. So you're naturally going to go on and explore these different flavours which taste nicer.
Wouldn't it be better just naturally to give up the vaping as well as the smoking?
I would agree. I have swapped one habit to another, but it's certainly a more healthier.
Well, it's a less unhealthy one.
Most definitely, and many doctors are now sort of coming around to and saying, well, it's probably no worse than a cup of coffee in terms of caffeine's another drug, and so many of us drink alcohol. But I think most of it's down to money. By you not smoking, you're not making tax for the government. I think that's where the real issue is, and that's why they're trying to ban it.
OK, Alex, thanks for that. Karen in Purley has a different point of view. We better hear it. Go on, Karen.
Hello, George.
Hi.
Good morning, my darling.
Morning to you.
Listen to me. You can't do that, my lovely. I mean, the NHS is under enough pressure. My attitude is they started either through fascination or peer pressure, but they should be adult enough to be able to stop. It's a dangerous a habit. There's articles on the net, on TV and magazines telling them how dangerous it is. If you value your health and well-being, you don't do that filthy habit. You can pass someone in the street and they smell like an ashtray. They don't have to be smoking, but you can smell it on them. And a lot of people, they can't smell that. It's awful. But I mean, it makes your teeth go awful, your inside go awful. I mean, it's just not on, really. And then you see the poor NHS is under so much stress and strain. There's not money going back into it as from when we started, because I mean I'm older than you, darling. So obviously that's why we got the national insurance to put money in the pot constantly, so everybody gets fair treatment for when they need it.
The point surely is, Karen, that it will save us money. That's the point. And as to why people started, look, it's really stupid to eat big whoppers. It's really stupid to stuff your face with sweets. Absolutely. It's really stupid to guzzle very fizzy, very sugary drinks.
That's correct.
And if we can get people off doing these things, the NHS will be quids in. The taxpayer will be better off. Isn't that the point?
To a degree. But I would rather have meetings in church halls or whatever, discussing with people why they should stop smoking and how much they will benefit from it. I was forced at 19 through peer pressure, but I didn't like it. I'd light it, but I'd let it burn away. And then a friend of mine said, you know what, stop it. And what do you pay for them? I said, I think about £6. This was St. Moritz, a menthol cigarette. And they said, because you don't smoke them, and put it in a jar. I'd done that for 8 months. How much do you think I saved, George?
No, I'll be a right few hundred.
Just over £1,000.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, my God, to think I've let something I've burned, put in my mouth and draw on, that was money. Burning.
Yep, it's burning banknotes. Karen, good call. Thanks for that. Christine is in Fareham in Hampshire. Christine, welcome.
Oh, good morning. Now, I've never done this before, so I'm a
Okay,
bit
take your
nervous.
time.
It's just a point that I think I must have missed. I just think that if people can afford 20, 30, 40 cigarettes a day, and the e-cigarettes are a cheaper option, so they'll be saving money, why should we subsidise them?
Just to encourage them to do it, really, because it's good for us all if they stop.
Yes, but when you think of how much taxpayers' money could be spent in so many other better ways, I would have thought.
Well, if it's 10 pence a day,
money and we're helping them.
yeah, if it's 10 pence a day, and they're prescribed, so you've got to pay the prescription charge, unless you're exempt from the the charge. Then, but most people are not. Then it will still be ahead. I don't think we should balk at the money, Christine, because we're going to save money if it works.
Are we?
Yeah, we are, because the cost of the associated diseases with smoking to the NHS are absolutely enormous and dwarf the expenditure of 10 pence a day on an e-cigarette.
Well, okay, if that's what you think.
That's my
fine.
case. That's my case.
This morning.
But thanks for the call. Anne is on the line. Let's hear from her in Enfield.
Oh, hi,
Hi.
George.
Hi.
I've been listening to this argument, and I really disagree with this. Right, I've got several points I want to make. So first of all, the chemical substance inside these cigarettes, they're made by different companies. Therefore, there's no regulation as to what goes into them. Different countries put different amounts. A lot of them come from China, and they put different amounts of tobacco substance into their cigarettes. So it's not going to decrease the cigarettes in the tobacco in people's system. So therefore, that's not going to help.
Well, it would if the NHS was involved, because they would regulate it.
No,
they're not going to pay for people to continue to smoke tobacco.
Well, I don't agree, because I think it's the cigarette companies that are mostly making the e-cigarettes. So it would be beneficial to them to be paid by the NHS to give us the e-cigarettes for free. But how much would they charge the NHS to give them to us for free? It would cost us more, because the cigarette companies will put up their prices. They're not going to sell it to the NHS the price that we buy it for in the shop.
Well, it'll be less, because they'll be buying in such bulk.
Well, I don't know.
Well, put me in charge of the negotiations. I promise you it'll be less.
But you're not in charge of the negotiations, and that's the thing. Somebody like you would have to be in charge.
Anne, not yet. Thanks for the call, my dear. Thanks. Jan is in Hammersmith. Go ahead, Jan.
Hello, George. I'm an ex-smoker. I gave up 22. Well, it gave me up. I became very ill. I absolutely would go after the dealers of death. They are dealing to our young. They make a lot of money. They live a very extravagant lifestyle on the back of young, impressionable teenagers. I was a young, impressionable teenager. I thought I was being one of the gang, having a cigarette. They're made to be addictive. They're made to hook you, and we should absolutely. I'm so fed up of hearing people go, well, give up. Well, they are addictive. That is the whole point. They're made to hook you.
Only ex-smokers like you and me know just how foolish the statement is, just give it up. Just say no. The chewing gum. A lot less expensive than the cigars, and a lot less harmful.
Well, it would be less harmful if the tobacconists were closed down. I know there'll be for a while some black marketing, but as our young grow up, just like cocaine was sold in the 30s from the chemist, as our young grow up, they won't be so sold into it.
I think all the experience of prohibition of alcohol in the United States goes against that argument, John. But thanks for the call. Andrew's back on the line. Go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, George.
Morning, sir.
I totally disagree with the NHS paying for these e-cigarettes.
Tell me why.
Well, if people can afford cigarettes, they can afford to vape. If you're saying it's only 10p a day, well, there'll be quids in.
Yeah.
I think the NHS has got enough, strain and struggle on it already. I used to smoke 40 a day. I'm an ex-smoker. I give up through willpower.
Well, that's terrific, but not everyone can do that, Andrew.
No, so, but if they do want, you've got to want to give up. There's people who half-heartedly go, yeah, I'm going to give up, and they don't. You've got to want to do it. If you're willing to do it, you're willing then to vape. If you're going to it's going to only cost you 10p a day. If you're smoking, say 20, 40 cigarettes a day, what's that costing you now? £18?
I've no idea. I've never bought cigarettes, but that sounds about right. Andrew, I'm going to press on just because I've got so many people want to talk. Well, this smoking lark is on fire, rather unexpectedly. Big interest in the first hour, and I'm grateful to you for that. I'm asking, should e-cigarettes be available on the NHS, yes or no? You tell me. Francis in Ruislip.
Oh, there, how are you? Good to speak to you.
And to you, sir. A nice Ruislip accent you've got there.
A good Ruislip accent. As good as your London accent.
Thank you.
You never lose it, do you?
No.
Anyway, first thing I'm going to declare an interest. I use e-cigarettes. But the first point, I ultimately agree. I think that in principle, yes, they should be available in the National Health, and the same way that other help is available in National Health for smoking. But I think we're a long way off from that in terms of they have to get them regulated. But also, in terms of the argument itself, it's probably more expensive to have them on prescription
It probably is, and therefore it's probably actually a bit of a straw man, this debate. I'm interested in it because of the vindication or the validation of vaping as an exit route out of smoking that the Health England declaration represents.
Well, I can give a bit of personal experience, but it's a bit of an argument on both sides. I used them, and I haven't now smoked for 3 years.
Good.
And although all the time, we call them tobacco flavour, but they're certainly not tobacco flavour. But it gives me all the things that I got out of a cigarette, going outside to the smoking shed to talk to people, fiddling with the thing, being a bit sociable, got me away from my desk. So it gave me that. On the other hand, I now find that I have no discipline in them, and that if it's in my pocket, I have a puff at it. Whereas if it was a cigarette, I'd kind of put some discipline on it and only doing it every hour. So there's, I don't think it's...
How many did you smoke cigarettes?
I used to kid myself that I smoked 10 a day by 10, but I used to smoke about 25.
Yeah, it's heavy manners. Francis, thanks for the call, mate. Matt is in Reading. Let's hear from him. Matt.
Hi, George. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Very good. I'm loving the shows. I've not heard you before. You're brilliant.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
This is a real battle for me. I'm blind, so I come at smoking from a different sensory experience.
Yeah.
And for me, finding an e-cigarette that fools me into thinking that I can give up the real thing is very different, perhaps, to somebody who can see the visual.
Very interesting.
Visual effects of an e-cigarette. And so from my point of view, I've been through several different e-cigarette manufacturers to try and find one that gives me the right balance in the hand, the right taste, the hit on the throat. Those sorts of things, for me, are more important than how it looks visually. And so I've been through various different companies. I found a company about 2 years ago that was fantastic. Well, let's say fantastic, but it was pretty good. It was approaching what I would call a real alternative. And then I got an email from them to announce that they were being bought out by, lo and behold, a big tobacco company that wanted to break into the e-cigarette market. Now, I immediately stopped purchasing from them because I figured that if I was going to be putting money into the pockets of the tobacco company anyway, then I might as well pay a massive tax contribution to the NHS, because with the e-cigarettes, every penny goes straight back into the pockets of the manufacturers. Now, I don't object to that if the company is purely and solely an e-cigarette manufacturer that started doing e-cigarettes because they've always had an ethical principle of trying to make something more healthy. But tobacco companies that are jumping on the bandwagon, and going from devil to hero.
Well, yeah, you can't keep a bad man down, Matt, and tobacco companies ain't going anywhere. They'll just metamorphose into another field of business. If it's not e-cigarettes, it'll be, I don't know, chocolate bars. Silva is in Ealing. Let's hear from Silva.
Hi, good morning, George.
Good morning to you.
I'm an ex-smoker myself, a very heavy smoker I was, and I've quit in 2008. And I'm in favor of those e-cigarettes being provided on the NHS, but just like in my case, nicotine patches, they will provide it on prescriptions, but for a limited number of weeks. I think it was 12 weeks, and that was it. Then I had to buy my own.
Yeah. Well, that's a fair compromise, isn't it?
I think it is, because sort of throw them away on prescription just to keep a lifestyle for a lifetime, no, I'm not in favor of that. But if it can help people quit, and for a limited
It's a bridge, isn't it? It's a bridge that we provide to talk people over from the dark side to the slightly darker. Silva, thanks for the call. Here's Paula in Caterham. Paula?
Oh, hello, hi.
Hi.
Yes, I don't think the vapor cigarettes should be on the NHS. There's enough other things on the NHS to help smokers. And the reason being is because I think what will happen is parents that have gone on to the vapor cigarettes, they'll be telling their children, oh, it's all right, these are all right for me, these are quite healthy, I'm having a cherry one today, I'm having a strawberry tomorrow. And children will then start trying it. It will become fashion. And
there is a danger of that, I'll grant you, yeah.
Yeah, it may not happen overnight. It may take time. And if that wasn't to happen, it would only be because today we actually have quite a few no smokers around anyway. But certainly in my day, when I started smoking, if my mum had started smoking those vapor cigarettes, I would have tried them. You know, and I'm a smoker, a non-smoker, a smoker, a non-smoker.
Well, I've been there. I've been there, Paula.
So I think that's what would happen. I think they would become fashionable, especially for those. There was a guy on earlier who's a non-smoker, and if you're out with smokers, they're going to go outside and have their vapor cigarette, and then the non-smoker is going to try the vapor cigarette and might quite like it. Oh, well, that's all right, we can get them on the NHS. There's enough on the NHS to stop people from smoking, and all the vapor cigarette does is gives the smoker something to do with their hands and that feeling in their throat.
Well, Paula, that's the most powerful case against that I've heard this morning, so thanks for the call. Said is in Finchley. Let's hear from Said. Go ahead, Said.
Hello there, sir. I'm currently calling from work right now, and I own an electronic cigarette store.
Okay.
I was hoping to chime in. I think it's a great alternative. Now, when we advertise electronic cigarettes, me personally, myself, and a lot of other companies around the world, we don't advertise them as being healthy. It's not something that helps you get fit. Now, it's something that is a healthier alternative to stuff that's been killing a lot of people. You know,
less unhealthy is the way I'd put it. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a healthy alternative. You know, it's the lesser of the two evils, basically. Now, would you rather pollute your body with loads of carcinogens, loads of, cyanide, carbon monoxide, that kind of stuff, and people around you as well. Now, when people smoke outside or around people, around kids, everyone's affected. When you smoke electronic cigarettes, you can also cut your nicotine level down. So I've had customers who are 50 years old, they've been smoking for a long, long time. Now, they come in, they go for a higher level of nicotine. Now, eventually, over a period of months or whatever, they cut down. So it does help you cut off the nicotine addiction as well.
Okay, thanks, Said. Let's hear from John in Kilburn.
Hello, George.
Hi.
I'm 75 years of age, and I think I can speak from some experience. I worked in pubs way back in the 70s, and, of course, it was a very busy pub. And at weekends, you could cut the cigarette smoke with a knife.
Looking back on it, it doesn't seem even credible, does it?
What I've noticed that all the people that have rang up have spoken from, including yourself, of course, until you realise that it was a selfish reason for smoking, but all of them speak from their own selfish point of view. I'm a non-smoker, as I say, and the point is that their smoking habit impacts on all of us.
Yes.
Millions of people who are non-smokers are impacted from smoking. And my son-in-law, my wife doesn't smoke, neither do I, but my son-in-law, I've had to actually talk to him on numerous occasions. Look, stop smoking. Or if you don't want to stop smoking, at least don't smoke in the communal areas of the home. And eventually I think it has got through to him. But all of the people, of course, one of the great problem with smoking is that very few people also have raised, is that it's an addiction, just like any other addiction, and should obviously be, the NHS should obviously take that on board. And anything that can stop people smoking and stop their selfish habits from inflicting on other people, I'm all in favour of.
Well, in that case, we're on the same page entirely. It doesn't seem credible now that, not just in the 70s, but until the 90s, that people were working in pubs that were full of smoke. I used to smoke my cigar after dinner in a restaurant. I used to smoke on aeroplanes, at work, on trains, all of which now seems such a distant memory and such a crazy thing. So I speak with the zeal of a convert, and I know that can be annoying to people, but we have to kick this habit, and anything that we can do to kick it seems to me worth doing. Now in the second hour, IDS, you're getting it from me. That's Ian Duncan Smith and the DWP, the Forgers Gazette, the fabricated quotes of satisfied victims of sanctions asking for more. Masochists they were, or rather weren't, because they were stock photos and made-up quotes. Tom Swarbrick, the brilliant LBC senior reporter, will be joining me in the studio, and you won't believe what he has to say. Stick with me. Ian Duncan Smith is one of the richest men ever to sit in Parliament, largely through fortuitous and no doubt love-filled marriage. But he hunts the poor and the afflicted with such a vengeance that actually I begin to wonder if he's all there, as we say in Scotland. When I saw him pumping the air in Parliament at yet another attack on the poor by George Osborne, I wondered as to his sanity. Well, he's been caught. His department are forgers, fabricators, and me and Tom Swarbrick have been looking further into it. It's going to be an interesting hour. IDS, tune in now. Yes, the DWP admits making up quotes by, quote, benefit claimants, saying that sanctions helped them. Like masochists they were, thanking Ian Duncan Smith for the lashes that they had just received, except they weren't. They weren't real. Neither the photograph nor the quotations were real. And it's come to something, you know, because if a reporter on a newspaper was found doing that, they'd already be sacked and be out the door. Pulitzer Prize winners have been sacked for exactly that crime. Orwell Prize winners in England have been sacked for exactly that. Even Boris Johnson, if we can mention him in such company, was once sacked for that. But the DWP expects us to simply overlook the parade of bogus benefit claimants bogusly praising the department for punishing them. Now, Tom Swarbrick is a young man, but he is a razor-sharp reporter. He's our senior reporter, and he's joining me in the studio Now, Tom, you've been looking further into this. What can you tell us?
Well, this has all come, as you say, from this Freedom of Information request from the website Welfare Weekly, who I think we all need to doff our caps to, frankly, for putting in that FOI originally. These are relating to two quotes from two people, Sarah and Zach, two people apparently on sickness benefits. They weren't real. Their photos were stock photos. Their claims that they were pleased that they did their CV after having benefits removed were made up. The whole thing, the department says, was done for illustrative purposes only. And the response to that information, to that Freedom of Information request being returned, has been absolutely massive. MENCAP, the disability charity, has called it unacceptable. Stephen Timms, Labour's acting Shadow Work and Pensions Secretary, says the only way Ian Duncan Smith can find backers for his sanctions regime is by inventing them. And Twitter has borne the hashtag fake DWP stories, in which one man called Walter White says, "I turned my terminal illness into a business venture. Being classed fit for work despite having had lung cancer really helped my crystal meth business take off." If you haven't seen Breaking Bad, that will be rather lost on you. To be serious for a moment, it is precisely this kind of idiocy, hypocrisy, skullduggery, deception that makes the Freedom of Information Act so valuable and necessary. The government, though, is currently embarking on a review of the Freedom of Information Act, overseen by those thought to be largely hostile to it, and in what many are saying is going to be a watering down of that act to potentially avoid situations like this one.
Well, you bet Tony Blair said it was his biggest regret of his 10 years in Downing Street that he introduced this Freedom of Information Act, and the government is committed to watering it down.
I think Jack Straw is one of those people who are sitting on the review panel of the Freedom of Information Act.
As what? As a private citizen?
He is absolutely no fan of it.
No, indeed, because it's people like Jack Straw, Tony Blair, and now Ian Duncan Smith who have most to lose from public access to government activities. It is a remarkable story, and a kind of almost prima facie it is absurd that someone would lend their picture and their quote to the DWP to thank them for punishing them. I mean, these sanctions are serious business. People have been sanctioned for having a heart attack and not being able to turn up for their appointment with their, it's a great American phrase, their jobs coach. The DWP, a jobs coach. But you're looking further into this. You're digging now, aren't you?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people will be, because this is, again, a story which has generated massive reaction. In terms of political scandals, it's not a Watergate, it's no expenses, but it is, I think, absolutely shocking to most people that this kind of practice can go on and can be caught out. So, absolutely, we are looking in and watch this space, is all I'm going to say.
Yeah, well, when you're on a story, I always watch the space. We've had the fake, dodgy dossier, which of course was on a much more serious issue, where the internet floor was swept and a thesis produced as if it were government intelligence to help drive us towards war. Now we've got the DWP inventing, quote, I mean, if it's for illustrative purposes, why didn't they say so? They could have said, as any company in the advertising business knows, these are not real people. These pictures and quotes are for illustrative purposes only.
And they say that they have removed now those testimonies and photos to, quote, avoid any confusion, which makes you wonder why they put them up in the first place, if there were any confusion potentially available to those people.
Unless they wanted to confuse. What would be interesting, now, even you won't be able to do this, at least not in the next hour and a half. But if we could find the people whose stock photos they are...
Well, that's the next bit of this. That's got to be there's some enterprising hack somewhere who has found Sarah.
Well, it is August.
Yeah.
There's not much else for a lot of hacks to do. Thanks very much for that. We'll talk to you again later if you get anything more. No pressure. And the question is, do benefit sanctions work? And should Ian Duncan Smith now face his own sanctions? I believe he should. I believe he should be put in a sackcloth in ashes, or in the stocks in a market town somewhere. After all, he's been caught fibbing. Yvonne is in Islington. Let's hear from her. Yvonne, welcome.
Good afternoon. Pleasure to talk to you, young man.
Thank you.
I'll be very quick. Ian Duncan Smith also had those job clubs that he was doing, so people would get sanctioned if they did not attend. And a friend of mine, I've said it before, a friend of mine went to them and he was told to use up his time by reading a newspaper, find something to do. And these were meant to be clubs that were meant to find people work and give them something constructive to do. None of this happened. Also, he was told off the record by one of the people that they were getting commission for everyone they sanctioned. So it just makes a whole mockery of this trying to get people into work. And
they put in such effort to dragoon the lame and the sick, when, of course, for a very long time, it's picking up slightly now, there were no jobs for people to get. However you hunted them, however many people you turned out of their sick beds, there were no jobs.
Exactly. And also, when people want to go and do courses, you're told you can't do a course because you're on job seekers' allowance. Or if you wanted to start a business, they'll say, we give you £1,000. £1,000 can't start a business, but once you get that £1,000, you cannot go back and sign on.
That's right.
All these little traps. And they seem to forget the little amount of money they give these people. They ask people to carry a pail of full water with a hole in it to the other side of the road and expect them to pay everything out of that pail, which is leaking and leaking and leaking.
Very well said, Yvonne. Let's go to Anna in Swiss Cottage. She was sanctioned. Tell me about it, Anna.
Oh, hello, George. Yes, I was sanctioned. I lost consciousness. I have cerebral palsy, use an electric wheelchair, wanted to find a job. They do quotas. I don't know whether you know this, but you know this now, that DWP are actually doing quotas because the more people that they can actually sanction, the better pay that the people who work in these job centres get paid.
Let me run this past the nation again, Anna. You have cerebral palsy, and you're in an electronic wheelchair. And Ian Duncan Smith sanctioned you. What was the sanction?
Well, I lost money, reduced money it was.
And for what? What was your offence?
Well, the thing is, I actually lost consciousness. I've got very low hemoglobin. I've got other health conditions, and I was unconscious. So if I was unconscious, I actually collapsed. So I couldn't actually attend any interview anyway. It happened on the day that I was supposed to have the interview for a job. And
what is wrong with you, Ian Duncan Smith? You're supposed to be a Christian man. You're supposed to be a member of Parliament. And you punished a girl with cerebral palsy and other conditions in an electronic wheelchair for not going to a job interview because she was unconscious. What is wrong with you, Ian Duncan Smith? Do benefit sanctions work? Are they justified? Or should Ian Duncan Smith now face his own sanctions? Do benefit sanctions work? Are they justified? Should Ian Duncan Smith now face his own sanctions, now that his department have been unmasked, I think we can say? At least Dick Turpin wore a mask, but they are being unmasked as people who are not just robbing the poor and the sick blind, but lying about it, fabricating quotations and pictures, purporting to be grateful benefit claimants who are so happy that they were lashed by Ian Duncan Smith, one of the richest men ever to sit in Parliament. Smug? Much? Annie in Lancashire. Go ahead, Annie.
Oh, good morning, George.
Morning.
What I wanted to say was, I'm severely disabled myself, and I have been for the last 20 years, and been getting worse, really, and I'm bedbound most of the time now. And I've noticed that, over the last 20 years, successive governments, not just this one, but even New Labour as well, have been gradually demonising people on benefits, and particularly disabled people, because we're all malingerers and scroungers and we're not really ill. So that once the public believe that, then they can just start rolling back the welfare state, which they have been doing. And I'm absolutely sure that sanctions don't work. But I don't think really that's what sanctions are about. I think sanctions are. I think a lot of it is propaganda, especially these leaflets. I mean, I certainly wouldn't be impressed if I got one through the door. It'd be ripped up and straight in the bin. So I think those leaflets are for the general public.
Well, they're for the simple-minded, to turn the simple-minded against disabled people. To get them thinking that they're malingerers, that they are swinging the lead, that they are shirkers, dodgers, so that they can drive down the public expenditure bill. That's the purpose of them, and that's the same for other issues, like immigration, like migrants at the tunnel in Calais, painted as a biblical swarm, when in fact, the last time I looked, there were precisely 140 outside the Channel Tunnel in Calais. But that's another matter. Annie, thanks for the call. Mike is in Chorley. I thought the earlier call couldn't be bettered or worst, but this one does. Mike, tell us.
Yes, George. What it was, I'd been made redundant at the age of 60 in October. My father died in early November. I was due to go to the job centre for a meeting, and I told them that I couldn't attend as I was sorting out my father's funeral arrangements. And the operator at the other end said, well, you do realise this could have an effect on your allowances. I was absolutely disgusted.
So let me get this right. Your father, God rest him, was scarcely cold.
Correct.
Was unburied.
Correct.
You were arranging his funeral, and they threatened to take your benefits away because you rang up and said you couldn't attend a meeting that day.
That's correct.
What kind of people are they?
That day, I had to visit the funeral directors, and I had to visit the registrar. Wow. And the operator, totally cold, no feeling whatsoever, said, well, if you don't come to attend the meeting, it could have an effect on your allowances.
Well, I hope he's listening, and I hope he's ashamed of himself. Mike in Chorley. Here's Michael in Marylebone. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, hello, George. It's just everybody who deserves benefits should get them, and good luck to them. And I think most of the country agree with that.
Well, there we had a man who was made redundant at 60, through no fault of his own. Redundancy is redundancy. I would have thought he was worth the benefits, and certainly worth it to allow him to bury his father before calling him into the office, no?
Yeah, I agree with all that 100%, and I think most decent people do. But I think it helps people when I know it's not a great amount, but the ones who cheat should be hammered. Because they are sponging, not of us who travel every day to work and work. They're cheating also the people who deserve it. And I think this is what annoys people, and they look on people, they look on the cheats as everybody, but it's not. And I think the cheat should be hammered.
I agree. I'm all for hammering cheats, Michael. Now, if we're talking cheats, why don't we have a dedicated phone line? Why don't we advertise it on the side of bus shelters? Do you know a tax cheat? Do you know a rich man who's pretending that his wife, based in Monaco, is running his chain of high street stores? Do you know a rich person that's dodging what he should be paying? Call, etc., etc. You with me on that?
I think I agree with that, because I think most people watch Crime Watch so they can grass somebody up.
I'm all for reporting cheats, and I wish we put more effort in to unmasking the cheats that really cost us. I mean, really. I'm not talking about tuppence halfpenny in a job seeker's allowance claim. I'm talking about millions, scores of millions, hundreds of millions avoided in tax. Do you think we can't afford these benefits. Do you think sanctions are needed to keep people in line? If you disagree with me that this is nothing more than rabble-rousing, call me. James is in Wales. Let's hear from him. Go ahead, James.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
How are you, George?
By the grace of God, I'm good. Go ahead.
No, I was unemployed, and I was a nurse in London and relocated to South Wales, where the lovely Welsh government put me on loads of courses and probably spent a lot of money not getting people into unemployment.
That's right. I mean, the cost of all this circus has not even been calculated in this discussion so far.
And they built this lovely place down in Cardiff, which is, brilliant for them. But it just seems that they should be spending their money on more tips, actually getting people back into employment instead of criticising CVs, as we've seen on the little campaign from somebody from Whitehall.
Indeed. Thanks for the call. Desi is in Hammersmith. Let's hear.
Oh, hello there, George. Thanks for taking my call.
Welcome.
And I'm sorry that for the first time it's got to be on such an upsetting subject. But instead of all these bogus figures, why can't they busy themselves with funding real homes, jobs, childcare, training? I've worked in social services for 41 years, and I've just never known it so bad for children, families, and even staff. They said there's 3 generations on family on the dole. That's not true. Those families have been out with us on anti-austerity marches in pouring rain, freezing cold. I'm sure you've witnessed it as well. And in the school that I was working, 2 little girls gave me their bangles to send to the gold people shop. A little boy was eating half of his packed lunch to save money for his mum. Co-workers selling their clothes for 40p a kilo. They're all low-wage earners, super gluing their teeth in, wearing Poundland glasses. I mean, it's just not on. And, with all these real things, why can't they see it? If you've got time to do something bad, can't you spend a little time on doing something good? It's just so upsetting. I just hope that we have some really, really happy news that Jeremy Corbyn for PM quickly, please.
Well, I'm with you on all of that. I'm quite moved, actually, by your call. You and I need to talk off the air because you hit the bullseye with that call. I think this is a multi-layered issue. These benefit sanctions don't work. They are being pursued at the expense of the poorest and the weakest and the most vulnerable and the lamest people. And we've had some of them on the line. We had a woman who's been bedbound for 20 years. We had a woman with cerebral palsy and who goes around, when she can get around, in an electronic wheelchair. Now, what is the earthly point? Never mind the earthly morality. What is the earthly point about hunting such people out to job clubs and job opportunities? Their chances of landing a job are vanishingly small. And your point is, why don't we spend that money and that Whitehall effort into actually getting jobs for people who can do them?
Yes, I mean, it's easy to say, go and get a job, but, I'm a carer for my mum, so I'm working around that. Plus, I've not been well myself. I'm still working. We are trying to help ourselves, and if you want someone to do that, especially someone with a child, look at the price of the childcare. If you haven't provided proper training, they just closed everything down. If you don't retrain and help people, how can they get the money? Of course, we all need a helping hand. Nobody's saying, but I know myself, the mums come to the back to work clubs, they're so excited, they're learning languages, they're doing everything, and then what happens? They go out, they get a slap in the face because they just don't get the wages to meet the childcare. And some employers are very good and they understand, but what they say is, we have to take out your hour for your break or your coffee break, and then it puts your hours back. So it's just little things like that that's small to us, but sometimes a pound is a hell.
Well, of course, when we talk sanctions, let's call a spade. We're talking about taking money from already very poor people, aren't we?
Yes. yes. And this is what it is, you know. I mean, what do you want them to do? I mean, you know, how much slower can you go? We used to, like, if you were eating at Waitrose, now you're going to all the other shops like Lidl and Aldi, or you're going to any shop where you can pick up. Two old people the other day bought 7 £1 dinners in Iceland that they were going to share between the two of them. It's just, you know, if I had the money and I could make away paper money, I'd do it, you know. And we were all trying to help, and you just get pushed back. And then they wonder why, you know, our young people are going into all different things. They're doing things they shouldn't. They just tell me, but Desi, we've got no hope. There's no hope out there.
Well, thanks for that, Desi. There is some hope, and it's on the horizon, and you referred to it earlier. But you made the whole case. Are the acronyms IDS and DWP the most hated in Britain? I think they possibly are. And that won't have improved with the revelation in the media this morning that the DWP has admitted making up quotes by benefit claimants saying that sanctions helped them. The pain, you see, they enjoyed it, really. Now, let's see. Dean in Brent Cross thinks all benefits should be scrapped. Maybe they've just let him out for a couple of days, or maybe he's just having a laugh. Let's hear which. Go ahead, Dean.
Hello, George.
Yes.
I'll probably, after I will express my point, I'll make my point, I'll become one of the most hated immigrants in the country. I think, George, I think you as a generation and the previous one and the next one, you guys, you grew up in a time when money existed. Now money doesn't exist anymore, and you have no idea. But what you're doing right now, you're going to destroy the next generation, because we have to pay the debt, not you. We have to pay the debt. So I think you should wake up, guys, and you should say, you know what? Let's cut from the benefits. Let's cut them. Let's crop them, for goodness sake. Let's keep them only for disabled. Yeah, I think disabled people, they should be entitled for everything. House for free, bills paid by the government. Disabled people should be entitled to everything. But no. When you said the people are poor, what they are poor for, when I left my country, I'm from a very poor country, Romania. I came here with £20 on my bank, on my pocket, and now I earn over £40,000. When I used to live in London, because I couldn't find a proper job, a better job, I left London and now I live in a town. So I moved. When I have to move, I have to move. That's the point. So I think you guys, you should wake up, because most of your callers, not just today, but times, they were parents, or not necessarily parents, but people over 30s, and they're all complaining, which is very bad, because they should wake up. They say, oh, you know what? When we were young, we're money. Now money does not exist anymore. It's like, George, it's like you having a credit card, and spending the last penny, and you say, you know what? Oh, I'm bankrupt. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. I think it's bad what you're doing right now. I think it's bad because you blame the government because they try to do something good for the next generation. You blame the government because they want to cut benefits for people under 25. What they should have benefits for? Why? Are they disabled? No. Then go to work.
Well, Dean, I'm quite offended, actually, by your goal. You've come here from Romania, and you say that you now earn £40,000 a year, and you condemn the society and the social and moral fabric of the society to which you've come, and from which you are, according to you, now richly benefiting from. You see, we in this country believe that somebody in a wheelchair with cerebral palsy should be supported by the taxpayer. We believe that people who've worked all their lives, including in the wartime generation, keeping the home fires burning, or actually putting their bodies in the line, on the line, to defend the society and the morality that we believed in, should be looked after. They should get benefits, they should get pensions, and they should get other benefits to supplement their pensions. They should get a TV license, free, for example. We believe in these things. And we believe that there shouldn't be a need for people to be begging on the streets. That children have no responsibility for the misfortune or the misbehavior of their parents, that we have an obligation. You see, some of us don't just believe in me and now, we believe in us and always. We believe that we are all diminished when others are diminished. That's just the British way. And maybe if you stay here long enough, you'll pick it up. Susie in Humberside, she's on next. Go ahead, Susie.
Yeah, a friend of mine, she was seriously injured at work. Within 1 month, she's been sent to see one of the top doctors in the world for traumatic injuries, who assessed all the injuries and how it will affect her for the rest of her life. Because it's a very serious incident at work. Within the same month, a nurse, I think you call it Maximus now, has declared us perfectly able to work, has not a thing wrong with her at all, has no injuries whatsoever. They've immediately taken away all the benefits, including the housing benefit. Now, how do you work that one out?
Well, that's the new Britain that people chose, I'm afraid. Matt is in Forest Gate on the same subject. Go ahead, Matt.
Hello, yeah. I was quite offended by that gentleman who was talking about...
You and me both, mate. You and me both.
I think, at the end of the day, I think it's quite an insult, that what he said, because at the end of the day, Britain has always been a very understanding country where we look after everybody that we could possibly do. And that is not that's not what's happening in this country at the present moment. It's causing an uproar. And the reason why our benefits is suffering is because when, I would say, Tony Blair has allowed the EU to be able to join our great country and everything else, it's opened a tin of worms with the benefit and the national health and the doctors. It's overpopulated our system.
Well, there's more of us living in the EU than there are people from the EU living here. You do know that, Matt, yeah?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
But the thing is the problem we have is people over other countries are actually using our benefit over here because they're allowed to.
Actually, that's not even true.
That is because it's been. I've known it. I've actually seen it and known it.
Well, whatever you've seen and known, I'm telling you that it's not true. That the migrants have a net contribution to the British economy of £5 billion. In other words, let me spell that out. The migrants here are putting in £5 billion a year more than they're taking out.
Well, then why is our system being drained?
It's being drained because of lack of funds. It's being drained because of lack of funds, Matt. I think you need to read a bit more widely. Simon is in Barnsley. Let's hear from him.
Good morning, George.
Morning, sir.
I just want to give you my experience dealing with the job centre and the whole system, really. I just think it's totally unfit for purpose now. I left school at 16. I worked ever since then, and unfortunately, when I was 40, 2 years ago, I was unemployed for a period. Every now and again, you get an interview where your job advisor asks you what you're doing to find work and things like that. On the morning that I was due for this interview, I went into the job centre and I saw a job that I wanted to apply for. Now, when I went up for my interview, I told the woman that I needed to use the phone to apply for this job, and she said, you can't do that because this 2-hour interview is for me to check up that you're looking for work.
Rather than actually help you to apply for a job right there and then.
Yeah, I said, well, I thought the whole point of me being here was to find work. I found work, and you're not letting me use the phone in the 2 hours, so I was sanctioned for that.
Oh, my goodness. Thanks for that, Simon. Michelle is in Cardiff. Go ahead, Michelle.
Yeah, I just want to say, George, I don't agree with the sanctions at all. I'm working on low wages. I'm a school cleaner. And when I used to go down the door in Cardiff, no kidding, the women work in the job centre, absolute, I've got to say it, absolute bitches. They'll call you a liar to your face. You're not looking for work as far as they're concerned. They'll stop your benefits. You know, you go to the job club and they'll say, you know, your CV got to stand out. I said, it's the employer, you know, it's the employers can pick and choose who they want. It makes no difference if my CV is gold-plated. Unless they want me, it suits them, I can't get the job.
No, I think, I agree with you that the attitude of some, maybe many, job centre staff leaves a lot to be desired. But it's not true that your CV doesn't matter. It does.
Listen, I'm 56. I just go for all the jobs, apply for everything. A lot of the times, they never even bothered applying. You know, the employers never bothered replying back to me saying, yeah, thanks for your letter, nothing. You go down the job centre, you haven't looked for this job. Yes, I have. No one replies. They just call you a liar to your face because, you know, as far as they're concerned, all you want to do, they think, when you're on the dole, you want to sit in the house all day, watching Jeremy Kyle, and I assume everybody's selling drugs. I'm not selling drugs.
No, you're working as a school cleaner. Michelle, in Cardiff. Thanks for that. LV is a gypsy who thinks benefit sanctions work. People have children willy-nilly these days, says LV, describing themselves as a gypsy, which is a phrase I don't normally use. We're talking about benefit sanctions and the DWP. LV in Huntingdon thinks that the sanctions work and that people have children willy-nilly these days. Better tell me why, LV.
Well, I knew for a fact many years ago one woman, she had a large family, and she told not just me but everybody, that every time one of her children came off of child benefits, she had another baby ready to go on, which a lot of them seem to do these days. And getting back to myself, like I said, we worked to keep my 4 children, what I had. I didn't go down social and set and ask what box I tick next to get more money. People want children, let them keep them by all means, but do not let the state have to end up paying for them. And as for children starving these days, I cannot understand where people are coming from on that tactic.
Now, you've got children, yeah?
Well, they're all grown up now, yeah, they're all grown up.
How many did you have?
I had 4.
Okay, do you know that every one of them got child benefit or family allowance as it possibly was then? Do you know that every one of them got educated free at primary school and at secondary school? You know that, yeah? You know that these are benefits, yeah? You know that these are taxpayer-funded benefits. I hope none of them were ever ill, but if they were, they went to a National Health Service, which is a benefit, a taxpayer-funded benefit. You know that, yeah?
I'm going to stop you there, George. I was brought up in a family, and we're going back to my mother and father now, and my aunts and uncles. Whenever we went to see a doctor or we required a doctor, we paid.
Well, they must be very, very old, because the National Health Service was brought in 1945.
No, they were still paying because they wanted to pay when I was going to school.
So your aunts and uncles paid for the health care they got, even though the National Health Service had been brought in?
Yes, and they paid for the health care their children needed, the likes of me and my cousins, yes.
Through private health insurance?
Well, yes.
They must have been very wealthy. What were they doing?
They were working to keep themselves and not to be a burden
and they didn't want to use the health service. They preferred to pay for it.
They preferred to pay for it, yes.
Remarkable. Remarkable. Thanks for that, LV. Sandra is in Bromley. Let's hear from her.
Hello there.
Hi.
Hi. I just want to talk about the DWP. Unfortunately, I had to claim due to having an injury to my back, but was later on investigated by them, a complete farce, as they didn't document my benefits properly and all the correspondence that they'd asked for, telling me that I was under an investigation. A few weeks ago, it was literally thrown out. They apologised to me profusely for hounding me for over 9 months, I believe it's been, which has now affected my health, my general confidence. It's absolutely disgusting how they're allowed to get away with something like that.
Well, instead of hunting someone in Bromley, they'd have been better standing around in the city of London. They'd actually have found far more malfeasance going on. Barry is in Norwood. Go ahead, Barry. Barry, you're on the air.
Moment. Yeah. Right. Now, hello, can you hear me?
I can, and so can the country.
Yeah, right. All right, excellent. Right, now, I just don't understand what's people's problems. They seem to think that they don't require insurance policies. So they're quite happy to lose all the support that has been hard fought for a couple of hundred years, essentially. They want to give up all their rights. They don't want rights at work. They don't want support when they're down and when they're out. They don't want support for their family and their children. They don't want their children to have a future, it seems, because all of these networks that are available have been put there so that we as people can benefit as a country, and we have benefited greatly for them. I've been in sanctioned. I work quite happily for services in the local authorities, and I was sanctioned because I had a brain tumour, and they thought that that's not enough. That's not good enough to be out of work, you know? So they bullied me back into work well before my time, causing me to hemorrhage. Now, that is not a support system. That is the country caving in on itself. That's what I can see. And that's why we need people like you back in the Labour Party, George.
Well, Barry, thanks for that. They expelled me, so they'll have to rescind that expulsion. That's the only way that could happen. But the more important point that you make is a good one. Through false consciousness, you can persuade people to cut their own throats. You could persuade people to cut their own families' throats. And we've had some examples of that today. Now, Theo Usherwood is our wise young LBC political editor. He'll tell us why some people were sanctioned.
Yes, good morning, George. I've just been on the phone to the DWP just to ask them exactly what these so-called case studies, these leaflets that appeared online, pertain to, what they related to, and they go back. They're trying to provide an illustrative example of something called the claimant commitment, which was introduced by the DWP back towards the end of 2013. And that commitment, job seekers, anybody looking for a job, would have to sign up to in order to receive their benefits. And there were many measures within those commitments, but one of them includes writing up a CV, a personal statement about what you'll do to find a job, and also a commitment to let your work coach know if you're going to miss an appointment. And that's if you read through the actual case studies, Sarah talks about the fact that she had to update her CV in order that she didn't lose her benefits, and Zach said,
except she didn't because she's not really Sarah, and she didn't really say that.
Yes, and then Zach said, he'd phone in ahead if he was going to miss his appointment, and therefore avoid being sanctioned. I've got a statement, we've probably heard it before, from the DWP, saying that the case studies were used for illustrative purposes to help people understand how the benefit system works. They're based on conversations our staff have had with claimants, and they've now been removed to avoid any confusion. But that's what it related to, was this claimant commitment that was introduced by the government, that even the DWP spokesman I spoke to said, some people would say was much more stringent than previous measures that were introduced.
Well, we heard one, Theo, a man whose father was lying dead in his coffin but not yet buried, who called up and said that he was arranging his father's funeral that day and couldn't come to the meeting, and they warned him that it would cost him sanction.
Yes, and it depends, from the conversation I've had, it depends how much notice is given. So it's harsh, but they would say that in individual cases that they would look at those on their basis, but it depends very much on those individual cases. But it's about this. These leaflets were about trying to inform people, the DWP says, so that they're aware of the changes, because, of course, there are stricter or more stringent rules now in place.
Fair and balanced, that's us. Fair and balanced. Now, can I get one more call in? Yeah, I've got a chance. Let's hear from Dave in Bristol.
How are you, okay?
By the grace of God, I'm good, and I'm enjoying things. I hope you are.
I am. It's lovely to listen to your docile tones on a rainy Wednesday lunchtime.
Thank you.
My point was, basically, I run a local business, and I'm currently recruiting. I think the problem does lie with the job centre. I don't think benefits are an issue. Benefits are there to help people that need them, pure and simple. And it's the minority that always get the blame. The majority that always get the blame for the minorities' poor action. The problem you've got is you've got a layer from the job centre of recruitment companies all taking basically a cut from that original basic salary, and it's very difficult to recruit. If you go down to the job centre, when I was young and I was looking for work, it used to have all the old cards up, you used to see what positions were available, being a bit sneaky, I used to nick the card so no one else would get it. But you don't have that option anymore. You go online, you go through these agencies. These aren't the people that are necessarily recruiting. It's just a numbers game for them. And I think what the government needs to do is launch some sort of, big-scale website where employers can go to and recruit. Employers would be interested to do that because it costs about $6.5–7 grand to recruit, someone that's on, say, 23 grand. That would get that would get more people into work, which is in turn would bring, the employment and, the benefit being filled out.
Yeah. Okay, Dave, thanks for that. Richard's the last caller on this, but we have much more to come. It's Richard in East Ham. Go ahead.
Hello there. First thing I'd like to say is I've got a huge amount of respect for you. I think you're an ambassador for truth, and I've in everything you've done.
Thank you, Richard.
Yes, IDS, Ian Duncan Smith, the man who had £2 million house paid by us. Yes. Recently,
he did do well on his expenses, I must say.
The Independent Parliamentary Standards Authority have got a publication website where Ian Duncan Smith claimed £100 for 60 wet wipes. Oh, that's very needed. Going on to my further point is that the DWP recently, after a Freedom of Information request by researcher Anita Bellows, pointed out that 1 in 5 deaths related to benefits involve sanctions. I believe that these people who are sitting behind their desks, the little Hitlers, deciding whether people eat or whether they keep their house, are unqualified and above the law in some respects. They can just make these decisions on a whim, and suddenly someone doesn't eat.
Powerful point, Richard. Unfortunately for that subject, we've run out of time. But in the final hour, I'll be talking about keeping schools segregated. In the North London school battle, it's the parents who want to keep it separate sex schooling, but the headmaster wishes to make it a co-educational school, which is better for the children. I myself am in favour of single-sex schools, and so are the people at Eton and Harrow and Winchester and all the rest of them. I think that's the point I want to make right at the outset. This is not a faith-based argument, although many Muslim parents, in the case of the North London school, to which I shall turn in a minute, a majority Muslim school, and the parents are, I understand, by a very clear majority in favour of keeping it single-sex. Now, I support that, not just because I thought we were living in an era of parent power, so far as schools were going. I didn't know that headmasters were demigods that could just come in and override the wishes of their parents, of the children in their school, but mainly because I think, as the father of a girl who did go to a single-sex school, that well-known Muslim citadel haberdashers Asks in New Cross, I sent her to an all-girls school because I didn't want her head turning. I didn't want her being in any way intimidated by boys. I didn't want her fluttering her eyelids at boys. At school, I wanted her to learn, to study. And I think there are many parents like me who think that that is a good idea. As far as I know, though I'm not an expert, though our next guest is, girls do better in all-girls schools. There are fewer distractions, and there's less likelihood of them being elbowed out of the way in the dash for the Bunsen burner in the chemistry class. There's less likely to be domination by boys who are cock of the walk, who are the cool kid, and who want things their own way. Chris McGovern is the chairman of the Campaign for Real Education and is a former head teacher of a single-sex school, and later a head teacher in a co-ed school, so he's bound to know, even more than I do, of the rights and wrongs of this subject. But I'm asking you the question, who's right? The parents who want to keep the children separated, or the headmaster who wants to make it co-educational. But let's hear from Chris McGovern right off the top. Chris, thanks for joining us.
Pleasure, George.
Now, this is an academy school, Crest Academies, in North East London. The head teacher, who is himself, going by his name, a Muslim, certainly of Muslim heritage, he wants to scrap the segregation in the school, even though the parents want to keep it. What's the pros and cons of all this?
Well, first of all, as a head teacher, I think you need to win the support of parents. And at the end of the day, schools serve the community. They serve parents and children. So you have to take very seriously what parents are saying. You're right about girls, particularly in secondary school, doing better, and particularly in mathematics, science, chemistry and physics and so forth. I often advise parents about secondary schools, and they sometimes ask me, what question shall I ask when I visit a secondary school? And I say, well, if it's a co-ed school, you only need to ask one question. How many girls are doing maths, further maths, physics and chemistry? And invariably, it's very few. If you go to a single-sex school for girls, you'll find that probably a majority are doing double maths and physics and chemistry.
Well, you see, for me, Chris, that's QED. I mean, that is case closed. That very set of facts that you've just given us, which I was instinctively aware of, but not professionally in the way you are, that makes the case for single-sex schools.
It does massively, but I'm going to turn the thing on its head a little bit, because I was head of a boys' school, and it was a primary school, and I would say something there which you might find quite interesting, is that in primary school, I was put in the case for all boys' schools, and simply because the girls tend to dominate in primary schools. The Hermione Granger at Harry Potter is alive and kicking in primary schools. And in primary schools, you tend to find it's the girls who are more mature, better readers, make faster progress, and they tend to dominate the boys. So there's a good case for boys actually being in an all-boys primary school. It changes at secondary school, but certainly at primary school, very good case for boys being with other boys. But look, there are pros and cons to all these things. Some parents will say, look, I want my child to be in a school which reflects the world outside and it's mixed and so forth. We have to respect that. You know, the campaign for re-education is in favour of diversity, and we're in favour of choice. It's really important to have diversity and to have choice. There are far too few single-sex schools around. We want to protect those which still survived.
Well, that's what's under threat now in this school in North East London, isn't it? And it seems to me extraordinary. I mean, I thought since the Thatcher era, and increasingly, we were told that we can't have local authorities, we can't have elites deciding about schools. We're in the era of parent power.
Absolutely, that's what it should be like. I mean, we've argued for years, for decades, we need to restore power over education, within reason, to parents. And if parents are voting for a single-sex school, it's really incumbent on the school and the local authority, or it's an academy for the governing body, to go along with the wishes of the parent. It's a very foolish school that wants to fall out with its parents. I mean, parents are what is a school? What's the school about? It's about parents and children. It is a service. It's supposed to serve the community. The community has to back the philosophy of the school. So it's fundamental that parents and school work together, and that the school takes very serious notice of what the parents are saying.
So if I summarise your analysis, Chris, would it be this, that boys at primary school would benefit from single-sex education because girls are faster, smarter, and make progress quicker, and boys would therefore benefit from being in a boys-only primary school, that girls would be the beneficiaries of single-sex education at secondary level because on the maths and science and other things that you referred to, they'd have a far greater likelihood of taking these subjects and doing well in them. And maybe, I'm flying here by the seat of my pants, maybe in the last year, before university, the boys and girls can get back together again in preparation for re-entry, if you like, into the real world, into the adult world.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty fair summary. And what I would say is that a good single-sex school will in any way have social events either with girls, if it's a boys' school, or vice versa. Of course, there should always be social events, and there might be school plays, and they mix and so forth. We're not trying to have, these children not behind closed walls for several years. Of course, they should mix, and schools should ensure that there is a mix. But in the classroom, you will find that indeed, boys do better when they're on their own in primary school. Girls tend to do much better, particularly in the sciences and maths in secondary school when they're taught in a single-sex environment. It is possible within a co-ed school to indeed have boys' classes and girls' classes. I don't think many schools have ever tried that, but my recommendation is trust the parents and let's have some choice. There are some people who would argue very strongly against me and say, no, you're not preparing children for the real world. I would say there are different points of view. There are pros and cons of single-sex education, but do not just stamp down on people who have a different view because they believe in single-sex education.
Thanks for that. Chris McGovern, a wise man, chairman of the Campaign for Real Education and a former head teacher of both kinds of schools, single-sex and co-ed. So who's right? Chris and me? And the parents of the North East London school, Crest Academy, who want to keep education segregated, or the head teacher at that school and others who think that segregation is inherently wrong. I spent my secondary school years in an unremitting, unrelenting pursuit of girls. It definitely wasn't good for me, and it wasn't good for the girls I was pursuing either. It would have been far better for me not to have any girls in the school at all, and it would have been far better for the girls. That's why, when it came to the secondary education of my one daughter, I decided that she should go to an all-girls school. Haberdashers' Asks in New Cross in London, a state school, but a girls' school. It didn't work out exactly as I expected or hoped, or as she hoped, though by the grace of God, she's a very happy and accomplished young woman now. But if I had the chance to do it again, I'd certainly send my girls to a girls' school. Tell me where you stand. Well, I'm in favour of segregated schooling on a gender basis, and I don't think headmasters should be entitled to override the wishes of the parents of the school. I don't believe that head teachers should be able to change the status quo by fiat on a whim. In case it's not a whim, let's hear from Akid in Neasden, who used to go to this very school. Akid, welcome.
Hi, George. Just let me give you a quick brief on this school. It used to be called the John Kelly Boys' School, actually. And to its credit, had the former England cricket captain, Mike Gatting, used to go there.
Oh, yes.
And also, my parents went to this school, my uncles and aunts went to this school, and I went to this school. All my brothers, sisters, cousins, everyone went to this school. And it was always separated. And since then, it's become an academy. Okay, and it hasn't gone all too well. The boys' school is apparently failing in its Ofsted report.
It has. The boys' school. Yeah. The reason, I think that's the trigger that the boys' school is failing. Yeah, it failed its Ofsted.
That's exactly the thing. Because as your earlier guest was saying, and he's obviously a professional educator, he knows what he's talking about. The girls the girls' school was much better academically, and this is just a wheeze to increase the average on the Ofsted report.
Well, that's a deplorable reason for changing what, in the girls' case, is a winning formula.
Exactly. Yeah. And also, the other problem is, since it's become an academy, I went there from year 7 to year 11. I did my GCSEs from there. I did quite well, actually. And we never, ever had any girls from the girls' school come over to the boys' side to attend any lessons or classes. And we received the letter actually from the principal saying that it's not going to be that different because we're already sharing the buildings.
Well, that's not really an answer, I don't think. I mean, I'm in confession mode. I shudder to think how many girls' education I spoiled or in some way diminished by the fact that I used my secondary school as basically I was like prowling around like a lion, like a big cat. Oh, here's Paul in Enfield. Go ahead, Paul.
Yes, I'm thinking in perspective as a parent, and my main ambition is to make sure that my child gets the best education, comes out with school with good grades, and hopefully be able to go to university. I mean, that's my own personal objective. It matters to me that he gets the best opportunity in terms of learning new concepts and so on, but in an effective way. To me, segregation doesn't really relate to me at all, because I went to a mixed school, and you're right that you do get distractions, but not every child is like that. I don't think you can have segregation because of maybe the minority, like yourself, as you well described, that, has inclination towards other interests. I think if you have that, no, it doesn't matter whether you're segregated or not, you're going to have those distractions at all. But my concern is to, put more resources, more effort in making sure that kids get the best education, the best teachers, the best tools to get them qualified, and if need be, have much more stronger discipline and those sort of things that you'll find in life after you leave school, rather than being segregation maybe an alternative answer.
But what about the other points that our expert made about girls and maths and science, for example?
Well, in the school I went, the girls always did better. I think maybe naturally they have less distractions, so they had the distractions, but perhaps they're a little bit more mature, more focused, and so on. But
the point is, as our expert pointed out, in mixed schools, girls are far less likely to take maths, double maths, science, physics, chemistry, and biology, much less likely to take it and much less likely to succeed in it, where in an all-girls school, they virtually all take it and all do really well in it. Let's hear from Sean in Gravesend.
Hi, George.
Hi.
I'm afraid I'm against segregation, full stop. I mean, education is more than just the qualifications we get and whether we go to university and so on. It's about learning about other people, about, integrating, being able, once you understand other people, you can empathize with them. And the opposite of that is if you're not mixing with other people, irrespective of whether it's sex or from other communities, then I think it in the future in society, it doesn't bode well. I think that whilst communities should be respected in terms of, their views on education in schools, as your expert said, it's important that we pay attention to what the parents think. But again, I think that schools should be more representative of the broader community rather than, just single community type schools, which is increasingly the case. I think it's
of course, I'm not talking about any other kind of segregation other than gender. Our ruling elite has, of course, been going to single-sex schools for centuries and actually paying through the nose to do so. Not sure if that helps my argument or not, Sean. Thanks for the call. Here's my question. Does mixed-sex schooling work, or are schools best kept secret for boys and girls? Tell me your thought. Let's hear from a female, Kay, in Whitechapel. Go ahead, Kay.
Hello, George. My children have the best of both worlds. They go to a school called Bishop. We shouldn't call it Bishop because the church really is Bishop China, but everyone calls it Bishop with affection. Although it's a massive school, we've got something like 1,700 children in this school.
I know it. I used to represent it.
Exactly. So it's on commercial, as you know, and my children have the best of both worlds. They are in a mixed school where they see each other during breaks and crisscrossing of lessons, but the boys are separated from the girls during lessons. So the boys are educated in one bit, and the girls are educated in their lessons. So girls thrive with their lessons, and boys thrive with theirs. But, I mean, initially I wouldn't have sent them to a school that separates them because I was co-educated at Morpeth. But my brothers did go to an all-boys school, but that was because it was literally 200 metres away from our door. I really don't know. I mean, my children are doing well in that school. Whether it's because of the system they've got, I personally feel it's the children and the staff. The staff are just amazing. If you slack, God help you, they will be on your case. But if you struggle, they're there till 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night with after-school clubs. Kids who missed out on GCSEs, they're doing extra after-school clubs with them for their favourite lessons that they didn't get in their GCSEs.
There you go. Tower Hamlets has amongst the best schools in the country, and none of them are academies. Much maligned Tower Hamlets, but in schools, doing very well. Let's hear from Rita in Wembley.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, George. I just wanted to say that I had gone to this school throughout my secondary school and sixth form.
Okay.
And I think that going to a girls' school makes most people slightly awkward around the other sex later on. And also that the girls in my school always found a way to be with the boys of the neighbouring boys' school because they were sort of like right next to each other.
But they couldn't in class, Rita.
No, not in class, but...
In class is the crucial thing, isn't it?
Yeah, well, the thing is, because it's literally right next door, if you're walking from class to class, you will see the boys going to their classes.
Yeah. Well, that's the same in Bishop, in Tower Hamlets that we've just been talking about. So where do you stand on it, Rita?
I think that they would benefit from being mixed co-ed. I think that you're going to live your life with mixed genders, so I think that it should reflect real life more than sort of segregation.
Okay, thanks for that. William is in Newcastle. Good to hear from you, William. Go ahead.
Hello. First of all, let's think about girls not bothering so much about maths and science when they're in mixed classes. That's actually true. It's been known for decades. And the same goes for boys. If boys are in mixed classes, they tend to forget about their chances in the arts and so on and stick to more what they call manly subjects, right?
Yeah.
So if the children define themselves in relationship to other members of the class, some are arty, some are sciencey, okay? Now, the reason I rang up is basically this attitude. I don't know if you meant ill by this. You were saying that in primary schools, girls are brighter and smarter and so on.
Well, that's what our expert said.
All right. Well, anyway, when I was at primary school, it was a mixed primary school, and after that I went to single-sex secondary school. Now, when I was at primary school, it was actually the boys who were the brightest. I can remember...
Mind you, that wasn't yesterday, William.
No. I remember coming top and having my marks disallowed just so they can get a girl in the top three. But the simple fact is this, George, people have got to face up to this. There was a programme on television last night when they had an exchange scheme between a top private school and actually a comprehensive in Derby, right? Now, the experience, what's basically happening here is that what happened was it was represented that the boys, and particularly white boys, were actually put upon our society. Nobody was sticking up for them. Now, this is what I'm saying. Go to even primary school level and onwards. Boys tend to be 2 years behind girls in psychological development. This was actually written into Scottish law when it came into criminal responsibility. Now, people don't account for this, but when it comes to teenage, the boy's brain puts on a spirit of growth. So eventually, in the long run, the male brain is just as good as the female brain, if not superior. Okay, but the way the examination system is designed, this happens after they've done their exams. So basically, they're not looking at the basic biology here. The girls develop quicker, but the boys develop slower, but they go up to a level which is more specialist, and this is what evolution designed.
Evolution. I wondered how long it would take you to turn to evolution. Well, William, it's always a delight to hear your misogyny paraded on the radio. You weren't as bad, actually, today as you have been in the past, but you can take responsibility for your statement that boys actually, intellectually, will eventually be superior. I don't agree. Tell me what you think on my question. Does mixed-sex schooling work, or are schools best kept separate for boys and girls? I want your thoughts. Let's hear from Chris in Leeds. Go ahead, Chris.
George, good afternoon.
Afternoon, sir.
Up until a couple of years ago, I was running two schools in East Europe. They were international schools for basically English-speaking people. Mm-hmm. We had both schools segregated between boys and girls, but we gave the kids the opportunity to mix lessons, not the parents obviously the parents had a choice, which we observed. But when the kids, if a girl said, I want to do engineering, she perhaps moved on to the boys' course. And if a boy said, I'd like to do cooking, they moved on to the girls' course. We felt that was the best way because of the social interaction.
Well, my son goes to cooking class. He's being co-educated. He goes to cooking class. Why are these things regarded still in 2015 as boys and girls subjects, engineering and cooking?
They naturally are. They always will be.
No, I don't think so at all. My son-in-law is a chef, a top chef. Most of the top chefs are men. Why is cooking a girl's subject?
George, when did you last see a female steeplejack?
I've never seen a steeplejack for a long time, but I know that there are many, many female engineers, aeronautics engineers. I've met many of them. And so there should be. This is old thinking, Chris.
I take your point. What I'm trying to say is not only do we give the parents a choice, we give the children a choice.
To move over to the boys' subject of engineering?
Yes.
Oh, dear. Chris, you need some re-education. Get to a re-education camp. Here's John in Islington.
Hi, George. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Just to say, I probably come from a similar background to you. 5 of us in a 2-bedroom council house with a single mum bringing us
There you go. We are on the same page. Go ahead.
Academically, I didn't do very well, but I did extremely well financially. So I sent my granddaughter to pay for her to go to one of the top academic schools in the country, in the top 5, top 6. She did very, very well, and now she's gone to the 6th form, which is mixed, and she's fallen in love, broken-hearted, and her results have gone down like the drain. So I'm with you. I think they're far better off concentrating on that. And to answer the lady is regarding the mixed school, socially now, the girls and the guys are much more together. They can mix socially outside school.
Well, that's right. I mean, it's only between 9 and 4 o'clock we're talking about.
Absolutely.
I just think we should keep all potential distractions out of schooling, and we should make it as easy as possible for the boys and the girls to do all the subjects and not to segregate themselves because they think the boys won't think they're cool if they do woodwork.
That's right, particularly us blokes. I think we need help.
We definitely need help, John. Thanks for the call. Here's Elizabeth in Heathrow. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Oh, hello, George.
Hi.
Lovely to speak to you.
Thank you.
Now, when my daughter started, and she's my 4th one, now when she started nursery at age 3, by the time she was 5, I had made friends. Now, all my friends, there were about 5 friends, and they all had sons. I was the only one with a daughter. Consequently, when they decided to form a football team, my daughter wanted to join. So she joined the football team, and she played football. She was the only girl with the boys from age 5 until she was 11. At the same time, she also joined the Cubs and the Beavers when her friends, the boys, joined Cubs and Beavers. She didn't want to go to Brownies, all of that. She wanted to be doing what they were doing. So she joined that. She then went to a mixed school. Throughout the years, we all went camping together on holidays as a family. She's always treated the boys as friends. She did get teased, now and again, but that didn't bother her. Now, after she just recently left school 3 years ago, then she went on to study aeronautical engineering.
Excellent.
Now, you said
the very dabs. Go on.
She was the only girl that she started off with one girl on the course, and that girl soon left after about a month. So she ended up for the last 2 years. She's been the only girl actually doing the course, and I must say she's had an excellent relationship with boys. She treats them as her friends. And to end your fears of your daughter, she did not have her first boyfriend until she was 17, nearly 18 years old.
Fantastic. What a wonderful story, Elizabeth. Thanks for that. Let me press on, though, to Anne in Clacton.
Hello, George.
Hi.
Love the programme.
Thank you.
I've been a secondary school teacher and a primary school teacher, and I agree with you 100%. When I originally went to a grammar school, a single-sex grammar school, I thought I was being very hard done by when I came out of it because, of segregation and whatnot, until I started teaching and until my 2 teenage daughters entered the local comprehensive because, teenage girls, they fall in love, they sit in the classrooms, they are broken-hearted large parts of the day, you spend lots of time dealing with who's in love with who and who's not. The girls squabble about who spoke to who in the lesson, who looked at who, they're sending notes. It's terrible. At primary level, bright girls do surge ahead. Obviously, boys, there are bright boys, but they do tend to get squashed. And, primary schools do a lot to lift their levels and everything. But I agree with you entirely, 100%. And my own daughters have both said they will send their own daughters to single-sex schools.
Well said, Anne. That's a rare vindication for me, a woman who agrees with me 100%. Let's hear from Jerry in Fife, who agrees with me for the very first time in his life. Go on, Jerry.
Exactly, George, because 99.9% of the time I despise everything you say on every topic. Be kept separated for as long as possible until they're mature enough to actually deal with each other. And this isn't misogyny, because I love women, but there is no way on earth that men and women and boys and girls are equal. And by that I am not saying that one is better than the other. They are just different, entirely different. They're entirely different biologically, mentally, physically, emotionally, in every way possible. And when I look at schoolgirls coming out of school on an average day with tiny little skirts on.
Oh, I think we've heard enough from you, Jerry. You need a bit of help in your life, if I may gently suggest it. You hate me. You hate mixed-sex schools. And when you look at girls in their tiny little skirts, well, I had to draw a veil over the rest, Jerry. I suggest you go and see somebody. Ben is in Haringey. Let's hear from him.
Hello, George.
Hi there.
I've been a governor of both types of schools for about 30 years.
Okay.
15 years in one and 15 years in the other, approximately. Girls are better off in single-sex schools. They haven't got so much of the distractions that they have in normal schools. And they are, in most cases, the boys are catching up now, but in most cases, the girls are brighter and they move faster through education and get better. And the problem is there, if they do that, then they get the boys look down upon them and try and make life difficult for them. Sometimes.
Yeah, they call them geeks and swats.
That's right.
I mean, that's something we just don't need. I mean, life is hard enough for girls, for women in our male-dominated society. We don't want school to be adding to these difficulties.
No, the modern idea, though, you're right. Women should. I mean, if you look back even to the war, when the women's aircraft, it was all women that were delivering aircraft.
Yeah, we wouldn't have won the war if not for the women on the home front.
Yes, and also the modern idea about girls. That was a crazy thing to say, girls and boys jobs. I mean, they're all mixed now, and it's all fantastic. I mean,
yeah. And yet he's a guy that was running 2 schools in Eastern Europe. God help them. Ben, it's a pleasure talking to you with your fine Haringey accent. Thanks for that, my friend. Here's Elijah in Birmingham.
Hello.
Yeah, go on.
You all right, George?
Yes, good, thanks.
Just saying, I don't agree with Jerry. I think you're a nice guy. My mate likes you as well, so hats off to you, man, and it's a good show you're running.
Thanks, pal. Thanks.
Right,
now, your phone's ringing. Go ahead, Elijah.
Yeah, my phone's on silent now. Sorry about that. And sorry to hear about your mate as well. Just saying what happened to him, but, he did what he had to do.
Yeah.
But, yeah, back to the topic. I did go to boys' school. I went to Crest Academy when it was called John Kelly. And in Birmingham, before I moved to London, I went to Lordswood Boys' School. So I had the privilege of going to boys' schools where the female school was, like, really close by. And I would say that I also went to a mixed primary school, and I think it didn't really affect me either way because I was quite academically clever. So I knew when I was in class to concentrate on my topics, and break times and lunch times were the fun times and interaction times. So I'd say, as for leaving school and facing the world, that's where it will be a problem because obviously I've got more male friends than female friends, and I haven't got that many female friends I can say that I've known since school. So as far as the interaction level is concerned, a social level, I think it's a bad thing. But academically, either way, kids are going to be kids and probably make jokes in class if they're going to make jokes if they're of that nature. So I don't really think it makes a difference.
OK, Elijah, thanks for that call. Jason is in Surbiton. Go ahead, Jason.
Good morning, George.
Morning. Afternoon now.
Well, and let me look. Yeah, it is. Good heavens. Yeah, George, you just cut some guy off, George.
I did.
You did. You cut him off after he mentioned short skirts on girls.
And I'm cutting you off at the same time for the same reason. Terry is at Heathrow. Go ahead, Terry.
Hi, George. Nice to speak to you.
And you, sir.
George, I understand from a number of documentaries and programs that I've watched over the years that girls and boys generally tend to fare better in different learning conditions.
Yeah.
For example, girls tend to excel when they're working in a collaborative environment, working together as part of a team, where for boys that tends not generally to be as good an environment, where boys generally will benefit from being in a competitive environment. And I think this is why, and I say generally, because there are always going to be exceptions to all rules, and some people will do well in mixed and some people will do well in segregated. But generally, it's my understanding from what I've seen over the years from experts who have reported on these issues is that boys generally tend to succeed in a competitive environment, and that's probably why in private schools where they're all boys' schools, the boys tend to, achieve, a greater level of success.
Well, that and the vastly greater amount of money spent per head of the school on resources and on teachers.
Yes, yeah, of course, I accept that totally, but not even just in the private school. There have been assessments where they've given boys and girls sets of tasks to fulfill, and the boys have succeeded, much better in a competitive environment, and the girls have always succeeded much better in a collaborative environment where they will sit and work and problem solve together, where boys seem to succeed much more when they're competing to get to the winning post before the other boys.
OK, Terry, thanks for that contribution. Ahmed is in Stratford. He's been to both kinds of schools. Let's hear from him.
Hi, George.
Hi.
I hope you're doing well. I'm a great fan of yours, and I'm so happy to see you on LBC. It's my favorite radio show.
Thank you, sir.
George, I've been to both kinds of schools. When I was in early age, up to I think class 6, I went to a girls and boys mixed school. And my last 4 years till the GCSE, I went to a boys only school. Now, I can assure you, I mean, if I've been given chance again, I would 10 out of 10 times go to boys only school. The amount of competitiveness it gave me, like the sports and, the upbringing, I totally, endorse your point that, to a certain age, you need to go to, perhaps you should go to a boys only segregated school or girls only school. And then once you're adult, then you perhaps, in the university school time, you can perhaps go to, a mixed kind of educational institute.
Well, that seems to me the optimum. That seems to me what we have established in this 60-minute discussion, that in the beginning, boys would benefit from being educated at primary school on their own. In the secondary schools, the girls would do better being educated on their own. and perhaps coming together in the final year, the 6th year at school, they come together in preparation for going on, hopefully, to university and the rest. Let's hear from Nancy in Rochester.
Good morning, George. A pleasure to speak to you.
Thanks, Nancy.
Firstly, very, very brief, and I'll be succinct. I was born in 1940, secondary education 1951, 11 plus discrimination against boys for boys because it was thought they were the wage earners. Girls were second-class citizens, and it always irritated me because, as far as I was concerned, a girl, if it becomes a wife and then a mother, educates the children. In the secondary education, I had to leave at 16. I was fortunate. It was 15 leaving. And if you were a 15 leaver, you went and did shop work, whatever. If you left at 16, you went into offices. I couldn't stay on for sixth form because finances prohibited it. If I'd gone to sixth form to do the A-levels, I then would have gone to university, as would my sister, whose English is fantastic. I've always wanted to be in the arts. And actually, I think it's totally discriminated against. You should have single-sex schools because actually boys aren't as bright as girls. They're very good with the physical bit because that's, if you like, the hunter-gatherer. They went out hunting. The women stayed at home and used their brains that they had to survive. So I'm definitely, totally in favour of single-sex schools.
What a wonderful call. What a clever woman. Nancy in Rochester. The last word goes to Eno in Hendon.
Good afternoon, George.
Afternoon, sir.
I've seen a couple of programmes with Max Kaiser on an RT. So
oh, yes, thank you.
It's been speaking to you directly. I'd definitely say the most important thing in kids' life is parents and the guardian, and obviously they hand over their kids to the school for the teachers to take care of. So that's the most important thing. But having said that, I do agree single sex is pretty good, particularly when they're going in and developing sexually, emotionally, etc. It's a tricky time for them. Keep them in sort of separate classes during the daytime. They can do arts and sports outside of school, extracurricular activities. I think that gives a balance for the kids. So I'm not saying that co-ed is wrong. No, they can still succeed, but definitely having that separation isn't a bad shout as long as they have the balance in extracurricular activities as well.
Well, a very wise word for the last word. I'm about to head out to do some hunting and gathering myself. But my thought finally is this, that we have established in the last hour that segregated schooling is better all round. What is wrong with you, Ian Duncan Smith? You're supposed to be a Christian man. You're supposed to be a member of Parliament. And you punished a girl with cerebral palsy and other conditions in an electronic wheelchair for not going to a job interview because she was unconscious. What is wrong with you, Ian Duncan Smith?